Talk Radio, you're in to all things music.
Welcome to Making It with Terry Woolman, the show that explores the secrets, successes, and strategies for making it in the music biz. And now, here's your host, Terry Woolman.
Welcome to the show, and thanks for tuning in. I want to say a quick thank you to my guest on last week's episode, Grammy Award-winning composer, live from his studio in India, Ricky Kej. If you didn't get to hear it, you can listen to all of our episodes at entertalkradio.com/makingit, or download our app and take us with you. Also, be sure to tune in next week to hear my conversation with one of the country's premier improvisational acting teachers, Gary Austin. I'd like to take a moment to also thank the companies that help me sound my best, whether I'm performing live or in the studio recording and producing music. Blue Microphones, Taylor Guitars, Duesenberg Guitars, Seymour Duncan Pickups, Mesa Boogie Amps, Diodario Strings and Planet Waves, Motu Digital Performer, IK Multimedia, Fishman Acoustic Amps, and Exotic Effects. So often, I get asked questions about the creative process, so I created this show to focus on what it takes to have a lasting career in the ever-changing landscape of the music business. You're really in for a treat, as I've invited my friends, some of the best and brightest in music, to share their stories on how they've influenced the music that has shaped our lives. I guarantee you're going to love it. So let's get started. My guest this week is actor, radio personality, Keri Tombazian. Real, timeless, beautiful storyteller. These are the words that describe radio personality Keri Tombazian. Keri Tombazian is one of those chicks. Born and raised in Southern California, she is growing her garden in the spot where she was planted. Keri's passion is people, and she brings a deep love of humanity to every relationship and every script. Through her diverse experience in narration, commercials, and promos, Keri has developed a tuned ear and keen ability to carry the heart of the writer's intention to the microphone. Technically, she's a human stopwatch, nailing times, matching music beats, and saving tenths of a second off a read. Keri Tombazian enjoys dual success as a voiceover actress and radio personality. She began tickling the ear of Southern Californians on late-night radio as a teen and built the foundation of what would become a long-standing relationship with her listeners. At home in the booth and on stage, she emcees concerts and live events, is a keynote speaker, and above all, counts her devotion to her husband, Tom, and 3 thriving kids, the key to her success. Please welcome my guest today, Keri Tombazian. Hi,
my
Keri.
Goodness. Hi, that sounds incredible. Who is that woman?
That would be you. And you are incredible.
Thank you. Thank you so much,
course.
Terry. Thanks for having me.
Oh, it's a pleasure. I've been really looking forward to having you on the show. And when I started a few months back, you were on my very short list of people that I wanted to have as my early guest in the first couple months. So I'm excited that we made the time. So thanks.
Well, I can't tell you, it's fun to be on the other end of the microphone instead of the one hosting. The one being interviewed is kind of a treat for me. So I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's a little easier, I would imagine.
I don't know. We'll see.
All right. Well, so let's just jump in. You spent your childhood in the San Fernando Valley, growing up, and you were born second-generation American, first-generation Californian of Armenian descent from Yerevan, the heart of Armenia. And I learned that Yerevan is the capital and largest city of Armenia, as well as one of the world's oldest inhabited cities.
Well, and it said, Mount Ararat in Armenia, in the heart of Armenia, is where Noah's Ark was said to have landed when the floodwaters cleared. So it is an ancient nation.
Are there remnants of the Ark? Have you?
No, I don't think so. And if you really study it, I don't know if it's symbolic or actual that Mount Ararat. I mean, it's definitely identified in the Bible as Mount Ararat in the Old Testament, but but we're not 100% sure that they meant that mount, exact one. But anyway, yes.
Do you feel a strong connection to your family's homeland?
You know, Terry, I hate it when people ask me this because the truth is I was born in I don't want to give my age away, but I will anyway. I was born in the late 50s, and pardon me.
As was I.
And it was very different. Yeah, we're very close.
Yeah.
You're just a little ahead of me. It was a different time in America. It wasn't about diversity. It was about really finding that common sort of American experience. And so while, and my parents, it's kind of interesting for me to reflect back on my mother in particular, who was raised in a very, very closed, protected Armenian home in which, you couldn't, she said, I had to believe in God because I had to believe there was somebody stronger than my father in the universe. Sure. So her goal was to open up the floodgates for her kids and let us be more free. Later in life, what she said was, I didn't know that I was flinging open the doors on chaos, because by the time we hit our teens, it was the social revolution, it was the Vietnam War, it was, and so there weren't the kinds of protections that society held when she was a young girl. So there's that. But so here's what I feel when I encounter, and I live in the Valley, so it's Armenian Central, especially Glendale. Right. I feel a deep sense of connection with humanity. I mean, so yes, I mean, I identify with the cultural sort of sensibilities, and I recognize in the women, the Armenian women, and it's different, by the way, culture to culture. Armenians from Persia, that's very different than the people who are from Armenia proper. So the answer is sure, but Terry, you know me. I feel as connected on a foundational level to you, the foundation of that fabric of, you and me, we're human, we're artists, we're striving, and we value love and those kinds of things. So the answer is yes, but not to the degree of some people I know who have a very strong identification with their nationality.
Right, that makes sense. But something I know about you is that you are you have a deep love for people, and humanity, and I think it's very clear that's what's drawn you to your path as a radio host and personality, and also as an artist and actor. But you really are a people person. You have such a deep respect and love and curiosity and compassion for people.
This is true. It drives me. And, I think that as people, particularly in this, I mean, maybe it's always been so, but I just feel that people are so guarded, not only against what goes on in society and each other, but you find yourself in relationships guarding yourself and being defensive, and so what I always say is we have to resist the human instinct to defend against truth. We're always defending against truth. We're trying to push truth away because it's scary or it's messy, and so my kind of goal with people is to push past that. And I think that's what really the heart of artists are. And it's interesting. Artists are some of the most conflicted, screwed up people. And I think it's particularly because we have a deep sort of, almost like a gash, that we feel those truths. And so we're in this constant, not battle, but we're constantly sitting in the tension between striving to reflect truth in our art and defending against the pain of the truth. So, it's an interesting dichotomy.
It is. I'm remembering the very first time that I played with Cab Mo, and we were in the studio together, and I was recording a guitar part, and we finished the part, and he looked at me and he said, "You're a very emotional player." Yeah. And I hadn't been told that before, but for me, that's the only way I know how to Or it's the only
You
way
are.
I want to make art
Yeah.
in music is, to bring my heart and
Yeah.
passion into it.
And, I have a dear friend, an actor. He's just brilliant. His name is John Redlinger, and young guy and just up and coming. But he always talks about, and he was classically trained, but that some actors act from the inside out. They have to find the feeling, and some do it from the outside in. They know they have such a command of the human experience and behavior that they can create it, and then it sparks it inside. So either way, I think that, Kebmo is just, he's so remarkable. But he has a cooler sort of relationship, I think, when he's playing. You are not one of the cool kids, Terry. You're one of the emotional kids, which is what makes you so amazing. It's so remarkable. And, I think recently you celebrated your birthday playing a gig at a place in the Valley at the
that
local.
was a beautiful night for me.
But one of the things that I noticed is you are the kind of performer for whom an audience member, to really get it, has to be actively engaged in listening. And I think one of the myths about the old, what we used to call smooth jazz, I think one of the myths is that it was background music, or that it was, you could sit and do something else, while you were listening. And certainly that's true, but that's true of all music. But actively listening to your kind of performance is to connect not just with the notes that you've created, but with the emotion with which you're playing.
Yeah, well, I've always believed in leaving some room in my music and in my arrangements and production and performance for the audience, for the listener.
Yeah.
I don't want to fill up the whole space. I want to leave room so that it is collaborative, that there is a space for them to put themselves into the experience.
Yeah. I was on the air for over 35 years, but it's been 3 years, just in October, 3 years since I've been on 94.7 The Wave, where I was the evening DJ for, over 25 years.
Mm-hmm.
And
you started that.
Yes, I was one of the original, it was Don Burns, China Smith, Amy Hyatt, Talia Tregueros, who's still on the air there, and me.
Back in 1988, I'm going to call all of us out.
Yeah, it was an amazing year for me. 1988, I met the man who would become my husband, and got my job on the Wave, and went back to church. So it was a year of grace. It was an amazing
happened,
year.
right?
Yeah, a lot happened, and but I look back on those days, and when you're on the radio, it's a little different because no one sees you; they just hear you. And so it's a little bit of a different kind of quote unquote celebrity. It's a little different, the relationship. If every day, Monday through Friday, Bob Franklin is driving home and every day he punches into 94.7 The Wave and hears me saying, okay, settle in, you're in traffic, I got this cut for you. He considers me part of his it's just him and me in the car.
Yes,
so when he encounters me at a concert, it's like, Keri, hi. And frankly, in the beginning, it was a little startling for me that people were so familiar in such a way that I felt like, it made me a little uncomfortable at first. I didn't quite I didn't understand it. But then, several things happened that really helped me to understand it, not the least of which was in the 90s, the .com industry, which was, it was the first incarnation of the .com, and then it blew up. And folks who had given up their houses and their jobs, and they had moved to Silicon Valley, and I got a letter one day that said, "Dear Keri, I just want to tell you that, I am one of the statistics. I gave up, my wife and I gave up everything and packed up our kids and went up to seek our fortune. And we're driving home with everything we own in a trailer because it all fell apart." Right. And when we were coming over the 5 and the Wave was in range and we heard your voice, we felt, oh my gosh, it's okay. She's still there. Like life, there's still some semblance of something that we can, and I realized, I'm just a symbol. I am, I had been there for so long, and because I did consider the and I still do, I still consider the microphone somebody's ear, not broadcasting to the masses, but just talking to one person. And so it helped me to understand, so that when somebody would say to me, one of my favorite stories was at a Wave concert, and I was hosting, and I went into the ladies' room, and I just used the ladies' room right at the Greek. I didn't go into the artist.
Sure,
right. And I came out of the stall, and I was washing my hands, and this very lovely woman said, "Keri?" And I said, "Yes." And I'm expecting something nice. She said, "Your dress is tucked into your pantyhose." I said, "Oh my God, thank you." It was
so fantastic because they actually felt like they knew you that well that they wanted to protect you.
Yeah, it was so sweet.
Could say something very borderline inappropriate, but
it was great.
Really
she was looking out for me. So yeah, I don't know how I went down that little bunny trail, but I will tell you, Terry, when 9/11 happened and the Wave did what we called the Wave of Peace concert at the Forum was not a music venue anymore, but we got it, and I was supposed to be the opening host, coming out and greeting everyone, and I had, it was a very emotional time, and I had started walking through the bleachers and the seats and talking to people, and everyone we were all so emotional, and there was such a connection, and suddenly I looked down and the show had started and I wasn't there. Right. And I got such a dressing down from then. He was the music director. Now he's actually the program director at the Wave, Ralph Stewart. Mm-hmm. But it was like, where were you? And it's the only time I think I've ever missed a cue in my life. Wow, but I was so connected to the people that I completely lost myself.
We're heading into our first break. And we will be back for the whole hour. I want to talk more about your experiences growing up in L.A. and your early start in radio. So please, your story is amazing to me. So we will be back. Please stick around. I'm here with my friend, Keri Tombazian.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. You're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on Intertalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
Hi, I'm Tim Dolbear, the host of Sound Experience on Intertalk Radio. Each week, I talk with top professional audio engineers, producers, musicians, and the manufacturers that make the tools that we use in the studio each and every day. From capturing the perfect take to mastering your final release, and the tools and how the pros use them, we are going to dive deep into their process and learn from their experience. I look forward to you joining us each week on Sound Experience with me, your host, Tim Dolbear.
This is Jackie Bertoni from Jackie's Groove. Come join me weekly on my journey through the music business as I take you behind the velvet rope, interviewing industry notables such as Al Di Meola, Michael McDonald, and Al Jarreau, to name but a few. Listen to their stories on being in the studios recording #1 hits and onto the stages throughout the globe. Allow me to be your music historian. You can hear me live every Monday at 2 p.m. and every Wednesday at 12 noon Pacific Standard Time or 24/7 on jackiesgroove.com. Ready to get your groove on?
Welcome to Making It with Terry Woolman, the show that explores the secrets, successes, and strategies for making it in the music biz. And now, here's your host, Terry Woolman.
Welcome back. I want to talk about the time that you grew up in L.A. because I was growing up in Miami. But at the time, we read papers like the L.A. Free Press and the Berkeley Barb, which were established in 1964 to promote free speech and artistic exploration and human rights movements of all kinds. And you grew up, Keri, in the epicenter of the cultural and music revolution. Can you tell me about that time and in what way that influenced your life as a young girl?
I can. It was a remarkable time, and unfortunately, I get tongue-tied talking about it because it was a tongue-tied time. There was so much going on. I always say, and this is something that I don't know if I articulate well, but with all due respect to John, Paul, George, and Ringo, who were and are who they are, what they really were to me, for me, when I look back and reflect, is that they were a vessel. They were they embodied and somehow they captured this wave that was just flowing through society, blowing up conventions. And so it's not that it could have been any four guys, but what I'm saying is that what happened was so much more than they were. And so we were in the middle, and, I was just really a preteen. And what was going on socially was there were protests to a very unpopular war. There were social mores that were being blown up. The women's liberation movement was really starting to gain. This is really the second. It's called second wave feminism. The first wave was the suffragettes, but. So the good part of that was that people were questioning and artists were just blowing up their voice in such a way. The other part of that is whenever you have an explosion, there's shrapnel. And so not all of it was good. The free sex and drug revolution, it caused a lot of addiction. It caused a lot of degradation. There were, there was a lot of pieces of people's sweet spirit that got trampled on because there were no rules, because it was the quote unquote revolution. So for me, I was living in the San Fernando Valley, and I'm the baby of four, and my eldest sister she's like a textbook case study. She was a stunning woman.
That's
still
Diane.
beautiful. Diane, yes.
Right.
And she was a model at a very young age. She was a Rudy Gernrich model. She was on her way, and she got very quickly addicted to heroin. But she would take my other sister Lori, and me. We went to the Whiskey when the Doors. We were at I think I was 8 or something. I don't have the exact date, but when the Doors had their last performance, we were there later when I was just a young teen. Elton John at the Troubadour in I think it was 70. So, the Blah Blah Cafe, and I told my kids, now they're mostly of age, but everybody had a fake ID. Every teenager had a fake ID. And we used to hang out this little tiny dot of a place called the Blah Blah Cafe. And I know there are people right now who are listening saying, oh, I remember the Blah Blah. And that's where Al Jarreau, among many, many people, just started working out his stuff. He had come down from San Francisco, and we were in it when he got his first record deal. But so for me, there was a lot of tumult in my house because my sister was an addict. There was a lot of uncertainty in the public school system because the teachers and the administration, this was all new. They didn't know how to handle it. And you took a kid who was highly emotional, me, and who had done very well in school, and suddenly I was failing. And you had to take a look at, what was going on. And finally, somewhere toward the end of the first semester of the 11th grade, I said, I'm out of here.
Right.
And I dropped
out of school in the 11th grade to pursue acting.
Yes, I did.
Didn't you?
Yes, I did. And really, we say to pursue acting, I dropped out to get away from the craziness. That's why I dropped out. But I always had, had my hand dabbling in, community theater and through school. So that was what I wanted to do. But my folks had a very dear friend, God rest his soul. His name was David Lewis. He had been a Broadway actor, had been in some great films, The Apartment with Jack Lemmon. And then he had a iconic role on a soap opera, General Hospital. He was one of the original Mr. Quartermain. And he said to me, you're not going to make it in television. You're too ethnic. And, it was 1970 something. And it's true. There weren't a lot of ethnic people on the television. But you got a great voice. You should get into radio. And then I heard an ad for a radio broadcasting workshop. And sure enough, I signed up and went, and it happened to coincide with the EEOC, which is the Equal Opportunity Employment Organization. Right. They had determined in 1976 that the broadcast industry was discriminatory against women. And so here I was, 17, 18 years old, trying to get a demo together and getting and sending a tape out. We had reel-to-reel tapes and sending them out to all the stations, and people saying, you can't do that. You have to go out of town. And I thought, I don't want to go out of town. And I was so young, I didn't know any better. So it was a serendipitous event where stations were suddenly trying to get a token female, and I happen to have a good voice.
Let me jump back for a second, because you were talking about the EEOC. And before that, on March 6 of 1961, President John F. Kennedy signed an executive order to ensure that employees are treated without regard to their race, creed, color, or national origin. And this led to creating the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, which was established in 1965 to enforce civil rights laws and investigate discrimination complaints based on an individual's race, color, national origin, religion, sex, age, disability, gender identity, and genetic information.
Wow.
In 1976, the EEOC declared the broadcast industry was discriminating against women.
Yep.
That's where you step in.
Yeah. And so, and it's funny because the KISS Broadcasting Workshop produced me and an incredibly talented woman, Tress McNeil, who is the voice of Dot on The Animaniacs, among many, many others. She's a cartoon specialist voiceover gal, so talented. And one engineer. And so I always say God created the KISS Broadcasting Workshop for Tress and me, because pretty much, it was one of those workshops, one of those trade workshops where people go through and, but yeah, you're right. I was the beneficiary of that act by President Kennedy. That's remarkable. Right. That's a great bit of history. Go ahead.
I looked further into it, when I knew that the EEOC was part of what sort of propelled you into radio. But, I don't think you were just the beneficiary. I think you were actually one of the vehicles of moving women forward in radio. I mean, the truth is you were one of the first prominent women in radio.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you for stepping into that.
Thank you. I always say that, it was truly the greatest, truly one of the greatest just blessings of my life. And I know, there's a woman who owns and operates Sandy Shore, station. Yeah. Her station is smoothjazz.com. It's her global station, and I do a little work for her. But
we all work with Sandy. She's wonderful.
Yeah, she's incredible. And she came to the Wave as a young girl, as a part-time DJ. And she said, I used to listen to you. I would sit at the beach and I had my radio and I would listen to you and I would study everything you did. So I can't deny you saying that and her saying that. I don't think of myself in those terms, but I know intellectually, oh yeah, I was a part of that. And there are a handful of women who were on the air at that time who broke through. Los Angeles is the number 2 market based on the population of New York. But really, it's it's where the music industry is. It is. It's where the music is.
The other thing is you also help break a lot of artists like myself, on the radio. So you were sort of dual purpose, in the music community. You were opening a way for other women to become involved in radio, but you were also shining the light. You were one of the people, a small handful of people that were also shining the light on emerging artists. A lot of us studio musicians who were moving into our own artistry, and putting out solo records, and I thank you for that. I've always appreciated you being one of the early supporters of me and many other great artists.
Oh, well, it really, it's been an honor. And I'll tell you, I look back at that time, and I am a woman I'm a person who operates sort of on instinct. And I would not have known consciously that this was so, but back when music was changing, I mean, when the Wave signed on in 1987 with what was then sort of new age music, and then George Winston, and
sure.
That had never been on the air. And then when smooth jazz came along, Dave Koz, and even when somebody like David Benoit, who had been more of a traditional jazz player, started to play this more accessible kind of jazz. Right. There were a lot of jazz aficionados who were looking down their nose. Well, you can look down on your nose all you want, but Kenny G remains the number one selling instrumentalist in the world for a reason. Right. Yeah. But I really felt at the time, Terry, that, again, looking back, I wasn't thinking this consciously, that one of the things that I believe that I did was to make a way for people to understand, to kind of give voice to, listen to this, check this out in the context of this. And to I'm not in any way equating them in terms of impact, but like the fact that the Beatles and the rock and roll of the 60s reflected what was going on culturally, smooth jazz took off across the nation. And though it is, it's kind of gone the way of swing music on the radio, it's you don't find it on terrestrial radio. But at the time, we were one of the number one stations in the country, let alone smooth jazz, right? So
absolutely.
So I feel like we were reflecting a movement, and the artists were reflecting a groove and a sensibility that people were leaning into, and I think it's still going on today.
It is, and I think that part of what made that so accessible was a lot of us were writing melodies. We were taking a pop sensibility and bringing it into instrumental music. Yeah. I want to ask you, because you've worked at so many stations. You've worked at KORG, a soft rock station, KGIL, soft rock to ballads, blues, and big bands, KMPC, which was talk and news, KRTH, oldies and hot hits, and then, of course, the Wave. So you've covered a variety of genres of music, as well as your work on news and talk radio. Do you have a particular style of music that you prefer working in?
Wow. That is such a hard question. Oh, wow. Terry, because... I loved, because an amazing man. I would really be derelict if I did not mention a man named Rick Scarry, who is a wonderful actor, but he was the program director of KGIL, AM and FM in the Valley in 1976. And I was this young girl, and I came to him, and I sent out my tape and my little resume, which was, I don't know what that resume was. But and he said, yeah, you got a great voice, but you have no experience. Go get some experience and I'll hire you. I said, well, how much experience? And I don't know. He said, I don't know, a few months. So then I got a job at this little tiny station that I don't even think KRJ exists anymore in Orange County, but it was, music from atop the station. And actually, Robert David Hall, who is a wonderful actor, he was on the CSI series for years and years. He played the, the guy who did the autopsy guy. Right. We started there. But, when I worked for Rick on the FM side of KGIL, I was just a young girl, and he was playing people like Leonard Cohen and I mean, just really out there artists who were, sort of that soft rock, but with an edge. And that was so exciting. It was so, and I think that's why I sustained, by the way, a career, is because every time you heard me say, oh my gosh, you have got to hear this, it's because I was listening to it just like the guy in the car. And don't forget, we didn't have the internet. The radio was Facebook. It was the internet, Right. So
it was the glue that held us all together. And I think that's why, I guess people, including myself, felt like we knew you, because you were in our ear and in our psyche and in our daily routine, stuck in rush hour or getting up in the morning and hearing you talk and hearing you share your stories and bringing your own, your personality, your humanity, your love and commitment and joy that you have for the work that you do as an actor and as a voiceover artist and a radio personality. All that comes through. So I can see why people feel like they have known you.
Yeah, it's kind of amazing. And, to your question, so all of that was so exciting, all that, discovering all those roots of rock and roll kind of on the alt side. But then I was on the radio on the wave for so many years that music became a part of my, my children. I like to say I was pregnant with every single one of my 3 children. Right. And, they grew up. All my kids play music, and my youngest, Chloe, the reason she took up guitar and bass is because one year we were hosting and Norman Brown was on stage, and I didn't have anybody with me. She was with me, so she was standing backstage waiting for me to do my good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and bringing Norman out. And so we watched him from the side of the stage, and she was, 8 or 9, and she was mesmerized. And she said, I want to do that. Right. So I guess the music of the 25 plus years of being on the wave probably is my favorite.
I need to cut you. We're heading into our next break. I want to talk more about your 5-year break from the wave and your family. So we will be right back with Keri Tombazian. Stick around.
Hi, this is Tim Dolbear, host of Sound Experience here on Intertalk Radio. And Source Connect by Source Element is the essential tool that we use to link between my studio in Austin, Texas and the WS radio station in San Diego. Now with Source Connect, not only can we communicate in real time and with HD audio, but it's synced up and is of a high enough quality that I can use it for real-time ADR work, remote recording and overdubbing, and it even allows me to remotely control a DAW. Source Connect by Source Element. Affordable, high-quality audio and video connection over the internet for all of your production needs.
You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. You're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on Intertalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
Make this your vinyl night. I'm John J.R. Robinson, and every week, music creation comes alive through stories, experiences, and sounds when vinyl records filled our hearts and minds. My friends and I share our tips and techniques used in creation of iconic tracks for recording artists such as Michael Jackson, Eric Clapton, Quincy Jones, and Steve Winwood, to name a few. Vinyl has emerged hot, and the soul of vinyl defines art and passion which burns deepest at night. Tune in.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.
Welcome to Making It with Terry Woolman, the show that explores the secrets, successes, and strategies for making it in the music biz. And now, here's your host, Terry Woolman.
Welcome back. I'm here with my guest, Keri Tombazian, and we were just talking about your long job from 1988 to 2013 as a radio host on the Wave, but you took a 5-year break in 1994?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What is the story?
The birth of my second child. So I had gone out on maternity leave. I was the evening DJ on the Wave. I had been from 88 through the beginning of 94. Well, actually, 93. Yeah, Cooper was born in 93. Anyway, the then program director, Chris Brody, called me up and said, how'd you like to do a morning show? And I said, oh my gosh, I would love to do a morning show. She said, yeah, we want to team you up with another woman. It's never been done, but it's really hot in Chicago. Well, it was very hot in Chicago. I can't remember the name of the team. But these two women were doing a very kind of irreverent show, but they were doing it on a not a smooth jazz station. They were doing it on like an alt rock station. And so I got to be teamed up with, she said, do you know anybody? I said, well, I have a friend. She's a voiceover artist who did radio back in her early days. And she's a comedian. She's a stand-up comedian. Cheryl Bernstein, to this day, one of my best friends. And, but Cheryl and I couldn't have been more dissimilar. And, you know, we were a little crazy on the air and we had a ball, but it wasn't the right radio station. And I think Wave listeners were so used to me being this sweet voice of comfort at night that then being like, wait a second, she's talking about her husband and, it was jarring. And because Cheryl's sensibilities were so sort of wacky, it only lasted for a certain amount of time. I think it was, I think we were on the air for about 8 months. Yeah, I think they gave it 7 months. And frankly, I think that under the right circumstance and having had the right time, I still get people who will say, oh my gosh, I listen to you and Cheryl every day. It was such a heartache, But when the show ended, they wanted to put me back at night. And I said, I don't think my listeners would appreciate me going from all of that kind of morning chaos to now here's, Gato Barbieri. I don't think that they would buy that. I think I need to take a break. And frankly, I got into a bit of a scuffle with them. They wanted to, kind of impel me to do it. But I did step back. And then a few years later, the woman who was on the air had to go. Actually, it was in 96. The woman who had taken over, she had to go out on a 7-week medical leave. And so they called me up and they said, do you want to come do this? I said, I'd love to. I said, I just want you to know, though, I'm very pregnant. So there's a possibility that I won't make the whole 7 weeks if I go into labor early. And they said, no, we really want you to come back. I said, okay. So I came back for 7 weeks. And that's why I always say to Chloe, you got to be, I was on the air even with you. Right. She was born in 96. And in 1999, my husband and I, it was one of those things. We knew we had to move, but we were both freelance artists. And we knew that one of us had to get a job. And my phone rang and it was Chris Brody saying, do you want to come back? We want to have you back. Right. And I said, yeah, I do. And so I came back, and it was remarkable. I think it was also, by the way, the year that Pat Prescott and Dave Koz began. We all started at the same time in '99, and I'll tell you, I felt this overwhelming sense of gratitude that the universe, that God had allowed me to come back in such a way that I got to see it through a different, I was older, I had 3 kids. Right. It was just, Terry, it was remarkable.
You and Tom, I know you've toyed with the idea of moving occasionally, but you're so deeply rooted in Southern California and such a strong part of the community of artists. And as you said, when you live in any town for as long as you have, it becomes, according to you, a small town. If you ever moved, where do you think you would land?
I just want to give a shout out right now to my dear friend, Callan White, who is one of those artists who Tom and I, her husband is an incredible actor, Kelly Hinman, and they had 2 small children. And at one point, they just looked around and thought, we cannot give our kids the life that we want to give them. And they moved to North Carolina. I mean, that's a very simple story.
Right.
But it was wrenching to have our just dear, dear friends move away. It was heartbreaking. And so Tom and I have this huge community of artist friends, actors, musicians, all kinds of, and we do dinners. I have had an ongoing monthly dinner with a small group of actors since '97.
And you also, for those that don't know, you have a family of artists. Your husband Tom is an actor and an educator. Grace, Cooper, and Chloe are all pursuing arts as well, with dance and music and acting.
Yeah, Cooper's in his senior year at Cal Arts. And I'll tell you, Terry, it was so exciting. I went to a noontime. Cal Arts is a remarkable school. All of the Larry Kuntz, all the jazz cats teach. They come in and teach. And Cooper, my son, invited me to a noon jazz concert at, Cal Arts is this hippy dippy school, and they've got the large gallery with all. And it was some of the best jazz I've ever heard in my life with his little faculty ensemble. Nice. And it made me realize, there's a part of me, Terry, that's always said, I wish one of my kids was a scientist. Like, I wish I could spare them this life of an artist because it's such a painful life. Yes, but when I see my daughter dancing or my son playing music or my younger daughter acting, I think, oh, well, this is who we are. I can't help it.
Are you surprised?
No, I do second guess myself though, Terry. I sometimes think, did I do them wrong by not steering them toward more, I don't know, that the other kind of work that isn't so challenging. Right. But to your question, if we were to move anywhere, I think we would move to be close to our friends in North Carolina. I really do.
And do you think that at this point of your career, it matters where you live? Would you be able to sustain your career as a voiceover artist and actor and radio personality? And
so, as a voiceover artist, I'm fairly well, knock wood, and thank God, I'm pretty well established. I have national. I have television stations all over the country for whom I do promos. I work occasionally for CBS Network News. I do. Video games, you kind of have to be in L.A., and animation, you really have to be in L.A., and those are areas that I've started sort of a foray into. Acting, I still think it's good to be in New York or L.A., but it's not impossible. It's just we're not ready to leave. I mean, the truth is we're just not quite ready to leave. Will the time come? Maybe, but, when we go into Spumante, which is a restaurant in North Hollywood that we've been going to since our kids were tiny. Right, and the proprietor hugs us as though we are family because we are, and that's the part where I say to you, when you live someplace long enough, it becomes a small town. You support your merchants and they love you, and it's hard to walk away from that.
I have some questions that I'm looking at the clock. We've got about 8 minutes left. So I'll ask you short questions and with short answers.
Okay, I'll try.
And then we can open some things up for my final thought with you. You're an avid runner.
I am.
How long have you been running?
On and off since I was 20. So many years.
And you also are a meditator.
I am. I'm a newer meditator. That's something that I've taken up in the last couple of years. And your dear friend, Melanie, has, we had a little conversation about it. She helped me sort of focus in on how to do that in a productive way, because meditating is really, and running is also a meditation. It really is. The way that I feel about running, and I think meditation was a next almost predictable step, really, is that when I run, when I'm not injured and I can actually get out there, my my mind starts shedding. It starts throwing off all of the chaos and all of the noise, and the movement helps me to focus and to not focus as well. And so meditating, it's a different discipline, but it really helped me to continue that discipline of letting go of all the chaotic thoughts. I'll tell you, I just got off of Facebook in late July. I had been an avid Facebooker, and I decided, you know what? I spent too much time and too much personal equity, because I was always about thoughtful posts and really engaging in really lovely connection. And since I've been off Facebook, my booking ratio has increased dramatically. So I just know that while I love Facebook because it's a great way to stay in touch with people who have moved away, or, family and friends that you don't get to, I miss a lot of that part. But I know that when we expend a lot of energy in social media, we only have a finite, I think, amount of, in a 24-hour day, a finite amount of creative energy with which to, feed into whatever our art is. And if we're spending it in posts and tweets, and again, it's not that I don't support the use of these things, it's just that I think that they take way, 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 for me, way too much of my artistic equity. So I'm really doing a lot of intentional refocusing, really trying to find my way to a focused event. I've just been told by the engineer that Terry's connection dropped out, which is, part of the wonders of technology. So, I've got a couple of minutes, and I will wrap up without Terry. I just want to say, I was the first DJ to play in Los Angeles, his first record, and we reconnected a few years ago on Dave Cause's cruise. That year, Dave had gone to Alaska, and I was one of the on-ship hosts, and I reconnected with Terry and Melanie Taylor, his brilliant companion. She is an amazing singer and a wonderful woman. And it was in that environment, after having left the Wave sort of unceremoniously, it was in that environment that I realized, oh, yeah, it's true that smooth jazz isn't on the radio anymore the way it used to be. You can still find small stations, but ultimately it's not what it once was in the 90s. And yet there's still this love of the music and the people who are the fans and who go to the concerts. And it's lovely. It's lovely to have been a part of it. I really count it among the privileges of my life. And as an artist, I'm always striving for different ways to essentially do the same thing, which is to connect one-on-one with whoever is either listening or watching, and to reflect humanity and the human experience through this thing that we do, this storytelling that sometimes it's a narrative, sometimes it's a song, sometimes it's a play, but it's what I strive for, and I think it's something that we can all do in our life, which is to connect with people through story. I just think it's a way forward through society that's so caught up in technology. So with that, I'm going to say thank you. Oh, you're back.
I am.
Do you know
back.
that I just vamped for like 8 minutes?
That's fantastic. I can't wait to hear what I missed.
That was awesome. What happened?
There's not a better person that could have happened with.
And I was just coming to the end.
Well,
what happened?
Just technical issues. Something happened with the computer. I'm not even sure what, but I am back, and I want to ask you. It's my closing question, because we have about 2.5 minutes left in the show. At this point of your life, with everything that you know to be true, what would you say to your younger self?
Oh, you make me cry. Oh, what I would say to my younger self is, you let go of anger. Let go. Don't be mad. Don't be so mad. Let go. Forgiveness is such an incredible healing. It's this healing force that we can't see it. We can't touch it. It isn't concrete, but it'll change who you are. It will, and it will make so much room for so much joy. That's what I would say to my younger self. I was so mad, Terry, at all of the, the chaos and the pain of having had an addict in the family and watching my folks and just so much, and I guess it was in my nature. And that's the one thing I say to my husband, oh my gosh, I'm sorry I didn't stop being pissed sooner. Tom, he's so easygoing. He's like, oh honey, you weren't so bad. I'm like, yeah, sure.
Well, you chose well, and so did Tom.
Yeah, thank you.
You have such a beautiful family.
Well, thank you.
I want to thank you. We are at the end of our show. It's been a real joy for me to have you as a guest on my show. You have a website.
I do.
Tell everybody what it is so they can find you.
KeriTombazian.com. But I will say it's being updated as we speak. But yes, it's KeriTombazian.com. And then I do have a Facebook fan page, which is Keri Tombazian. My personal page, I talked about while you were gone how I had gotten off it. But I still have my fan page, which is, you can find me on Facebook at Keri Tombazian.
Everybody, make sure you go check Keri out and, see her perform in local plays and all of the amazing things that you do. I wish you a very happy new year, and I'm so glad to have you in my life.
Thank you. Likewise, Terry. You're a dear, and I count you as one of the treasures of my little garden. So thank you for having me. Likewise.
See you all next week. Thanks for tuning in.
Tune in again next week for another great episode of Making It with Terry Woman.
This is Jackie Bertoni from Jackie's Groove. Come join me weekly on my journey through the music business as I take you behind the velvet rope, interviewing industry notables such as Al Di Meola, Michael McDonald, and Al Jarreau, to name but a few. Listen to their stories on being in the studios recording #1 hits and onto the stages throughout the globe. Allow me to be your music historian. You can hear me live every Monday at 2 p.m. and every Wednesday at 12 noon Pacific Standard Time or 24/7 on jackiesgroove.com. Ready to get your groove on?
Hi, this is Tim Dolbear from Eclectica Studios. I'm a full-time mixing and recording engineer. I work with Grammy winners, labels, and indie artists, using state-of-the-art digital mixing and restoration tools and the very best in analog gear. Really, though, it's my ability to bring tracks to life and fulfill your vision for your music. This has made me sought after by producers and artists worldwide. So spend your time working on music and not chasing a mix down a rabbit hole. Go to timdolbear.com and check out our free one-song mix offer.
You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. You're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on Intertalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.